their real linchpin last year and what got them to the wins that they had.
Well, they've got a defensive-minded coach, and he did some things. His first year, he just did it with mirrors and baling wire. This particular group last year, I thought, played much better. But South Carolina, when people look at South Carolina, the one thing I have to say, and we have to go to the example in the upstate in Clemson, and that is, as good a pass rush as you can have from your ends, and everybody likes to see the guys circle in, there is nothing like a rush right in the quarterback's face.
Exactly.
And so that's what South Carolina is looking for. And you ostensibly, when you look at some of the shifts they've made, obviously they want to have all their guys learn how to rush from inside. But when you rush from inside with the guys they're playing with, you're going to sacrifice some strength for quickness and speed, hoping you get to the quarterback. And as I said before, if you get a good rush from outside and they can't double team the guys inside, quickness can overpower some guards rather than strength. And they want to see how this works out. And it's an interesting experiment, one that may work on some teams, but a team like Georgia, you may want to be more stout inside.
And you're going to have a guy like Keir Thomas, who's basically an undersized defensive tackle moving from DN to go inside there. This certainly puts the onus also on a guy like DJ Wanham, who's basically playing, in essence, an outside linebacker, stand-up end type hybrid at that buck position. So we'll continue to see what they'll bring defensively. And, of course, it'll be our first opportunity to see what DeCarrion Joyner looks like at quarterback behind Jake Bentley. Although Bentley does have this job pretty much in stone, and anything else you want to put in, Sharpie marker, whatever. But the thing about it is the fans are really, really curious to see what can be done at the backup quarterback position, whether it's Urich possibly stepping up and getting some time, whether it's DeCarrion Joyner. They've not had somebody who has been a threat at the backup quarterback, at least last year. And I think that's something that South Carolina fans, for one reason or another, want to see have come to the forefront. Of course, tonight we have South Carolina baseball and Clemson baseball, both at Founders Park and Doug Kingsmore Stadium. Clemson last night, a 10-2 win over Boston College. Seth Beer, 2 for 3, 4 RBIs, a homer, and 2 walks. Getting himself on base is something that Monty Lee has wanted to have done over the course of the last couple of games. Also, Jolly with 3 RBIs as well for Clemson in that 10-2 victory. Back on the field today, Brooks Crawford goes for the Tigers against Dan Metzdorf of the Eagles. For South Carolina yesterday, a 6-1 victory over Tennessee. Adam Hill made his return to the rotation. 5 hitless innings, 5 scoreless innings as well. 4 walks, 4 Ks. Earns his 3rd win in 5 decisions this season. And South Carolina's bullpen does the job as well. Very big night as well for Jonah Bride. 3 for 3, 3 runs scored, 3 RBIs as well from Chris Cullen, and a pair from Riley Hogan. South Carolina looks for a very interesting situation right now, having won the opener. You have 2 home games against Tennessee squad that, to be honest, has gotten healthy on some very weak competition.
And South Carolina, for Tennessee has been their lip balm.
Yes.
They've been able to, any team they've been able to beat consistently in the last few years has been Tennessee.
And, of course, as you know, with South Carolina's baseball team, the streak that looms. You heard in the open with Mark Kingston and the question I asked him last night, and we'll hear more from him coming up later on in the program, about the 10 consecutive SEC series lost by this ball club. They have a chance with a win today or tomorrow to at least break that string. And I know that he wants to downplay it, but you can't, in my mind, downplay it mentally if you're a player, because that just takes an amazing monkey off your back.
Well, I think probably the key point in this whole equation is, if this South Carolina team is to do anything, it's to build some character. And I think, people look at it and they say, oh, woe is me. But I think these injuries, when these guys start to get healthy, they'll find out that they've got some guys on the bench that are ready to take over, and these guys want to get healthy. And then they say, look, we've crawled out of a big hole. It's not time to crank it up.
800-956-7266, the phone number. On Twitter at SportsTalkSC. We've got a lot to get to. Also, a big recruiting note involving a now former USC commitment, which we'll talk about later on today on a program.
Sports Talk is the sports talk show of Main Street, South Carolina. From the coast to the mountains, we cover it all.
Back here on Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network, 800-956-7266, the phone number, and also on Twitter at SportsTalkSC. A couple other news and notes before we kind of get back into the meat of the situation. We did want to say that the search is over at USC Upstate. They have now found their new head coach, who is making a return of sorts to the Palmetto State, and that is Dave Dickerson, who has been basically spending his time with the NBA's Utah Jazz, but known more for him being an assistant with both Ohio State and his alma mater, Maryland. He is the new head coach of the Spartans. He's been a part of 181 victories in his time at both Ohio State and Maryland, 2 Big Ten regular season titles, and of course was with Gary Williams when his team won the national championship at Maryland. You said this guy comes from your area, Pro.
Yeah, Denmark Olar High School, played at Maryland. Unfortunately, a tough time at Maryland. He was there. I think he committed under Bob Wade, and of course that was the. He was there just about the time I think the Lynn Bias situation broke. Tremendous coach. He was on an upward flight for a while because he when they won the national championship at Maryland, he was the associate head coach at Maryland at the time, and then he took the Tulane job, and unfortunately this thing called Hurricane Katrina came in, and that kind of broke up what he was trying to do at Tulane. Spent some mediocre seasons there, and then ended up at Ohio State, but never could crack that head coaching job. I know he wanted that Clemson job years ago when Oliver Purnell got the job at Clemson, and the irony there is Oliver Purnell was the assistant coach at Maryland at the time, and got the commitment from Dave Dickerson. So that's one of those ironies.
Very much so.
Basketball.
And the thing about it is with this transition that USC Upstate is going to make into the Big South, they wanted kind of a fresh start and someone with a fresh footprint. Again, not necessarily the biggest head coaching footprint. Again, the only experience at Tulane, but certainly somebody who looks like he'll know how to find players, especially evaluating talent at the professional level also with Jazz. And we'll see what he does here at USC Upstate. His official introduction will come next Thursday on the campus in Spartanburg. Another day, another honor for USC women's basketball player Asia Wilson. She was named the Ann Myers Drysdale Award winner, awarded by the U.S. Basketball Writers Association in their press conference today. That now makes USA Today, ESPNW, the Associated Press, and of course the Wade Trophy, which she won yesterday as well. That's 5 awards, and she still could win 2 more, which of course are the Naismith Trophy, which will be announced up tomorrow at the Final Four, and then the Wooden Award, which would be awarded Friday, April the 6th, so a week from today. So by this time next week, Asia Wilson could be the unanimous Player of the Year in women's college basketball, which would be a very high honor for anyone, at least when it comes to what has been done at USC. Those are very, very hard odds to kind of match up with.
And I hope the fans know what they had here, because she's one of those once-in-a-lifetime players that I think will revolutionize the women's game, because we have not seen a woman that size be able to play 3 and 4 positions.
As agile.
Yeah, because she can handle the ball from out front and drive around a slower big person, or she can rebound inside and post up. So she's got the overall game that it's going to be interesting with the way women's basketball professionally is in this country, because I think probably bottom line is the way it's set up now, she'll make more money overseas
absolutely,
than she will.
Well, it's weird the way that a lot of these contracts work now. They are basically kind of, for lack of a better term, two-way contracts. They'll basically have a contract for their overseas team, which plays in the off season of the WNBA, and then they'll come back here and they'll play. Though some of those squads, overseas will not allow the players. They'll say they can't come play in the WNBA. So again, a lot more of the money again is made overseas, but there is of course the onus to at least play back home closer to where most of your fan base is. And the thing about the overseas contracts, and I've learned this also from some of the other non-revenue traditional collegiate sports, people who go and play overseas, is there's personal services contracts alongside of those things. So like not only do you get your contract, but you also basically lock yourself into endorsement contracts, which give you perks and stuff like that as far as those things go. So A'ja Wilson is going to be a worldwide icon, and of course tracing her roots all the way back here to the Palmetto State, and we'll be very much looking forward to see what she has in store for her future, especially after all these accolades keep coming through. 800-956-7266 is the phone number, and again, at SportsTalkSC on Twitter. Of the players that we will see tomorrow at Williams-Brice Stadium, Pro, amongst the newcomers who are there, the early enrollees, who would you say is the one you're most looking forward to seeing on the field tomorrow?
Yeah, Kwamu is the one I was talking about, because I think probably, as I said before, one of the reasons that your corners are usually shorter is because they have a lower center of gravity and they can change direction quicker. But with the advent of these taller receivers and guys just throwing it up when a guy isn't open, maybe you do need a guy that's taller that can play, but can that person be able, if say they substitute out and they're still in the game, when a shorter receiver they're focused on, can they cover them then? That's what I want. And I think Fenwick is another one, because you get the feeling that the coaches want to see more out of the veteran running backs, but they like this guy Fenwick because of his size and the way he runs tougher. And I think they're pushing them at him, giving him a lot of reps to tell these guys, look, grow up, or this guy right here, this freshman, is going to take one of you guys' position.
Well, the one thing I think that Bobby Bentley, the running backs coach, said in his spring availability is that they're tired of this running back by committee thing. They want somebody kind of to step up and take the bull by the horns, whether that's A.J. Turner, whether that's Rico Dowdle, Tyson Williams, Fenwick, anybody else, Mon Denson, who's not practicing this spring because of an injury. You know, somebody needs to step themselves up and become the every down threat that I think this offense was lacking last year. So many times they needed a yard and they couldn't get it. Now, you could say, oh, that was because of the offensive line. That was because of the play calling. That was Kurt Roper's fault. Baloney. Regardless, whoever has the ball in his hands needs to be able to prove to me and to those who are watching South Carolina that they have a threat with the running game, and it can't just all be on Jake Bentley's shoulders. I think that's also part of the reason why his development was a tad slowed last year.
Well, you know, the key point is, I've always said, when you got a guy like Rico Dowdle, probably the most versatile big back they have, as far as a blitz pickup, receiver out of the backfield, and the ability to run tough if he has to. And the key point there is, I think probably because he's played, I think about a year or two, a quarterback in high school, he kind of gets a feeling of what a quarterback needs in a certain situation, you know, where to move to find him as a secondary or tertiary receiver. So I think he's the guy, but the frustrating thing is he can't stay healthy. He stays nicked up.
The guy that I'm looking forward to, and I know I mentioned JJ Enagbari, but when I talked to TJ Brunson last week, the guy he says that he likes as much as anybody in that linebackers room is Rosendo Lewis, the 6'2", 242-pound linebacker from Deerfield Beach, Florida. And if you go around and you look at some of these early morning practices, he looks like he is a beast. 242 pounds on a linebacker of that nature. I mean, and he holds it well too. I think he'd be able to move side to side. I think he is somebody who can make an immediate impact right away. And I think that if you're looking at players who are like not even thinking about a red shirt, you're going to see them on the field. That's a guy I want to see.
Well, now that you know a lot of these hits you see to the upper body, you don't know whether you're going to get called for targeting or whatever. The enforcers now have to be your middle linebacker, inside linebacker that can just really stone a running game, and or a strong safety who can play the run tough. and hit. So those are two things that South Carolina is looking at. They did not have – they had linebackers who could really cover a lot of ground, but none of them that when they arrived, you really didn't want them to get there.
Next two segments, we'll talk a little baseball and hear from Monty Lee, the baseball coach from Clemson, next on Sports Talk. Welcome back to the Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. A little bit of a preview for the menu we've got coming up later on. We're going to talk about an hour from now from College Station to Gamecock softball coach Bev Smith. An hour from now, we'll also in our second hour hear from Nickelback coach for USC Kyle Krantz, Clemson co-offensive coordinator Tony Elliott off of Wednesday's scrimmage. Again, Clemson football team on a bit of a Easter hiatus. They scrimmaged on Wednesday. They're back in action next Wednesday, a week from 2 days ago. They've got 5 practices left before their spring game on April the 14th. Again, South Carolina spring game tomorrow. SEC Network. You'll be able to see it at noon. It's part of a very, very busy day, not only at USC, but also a busy day at Clemson tomorrow with getaway day for their game against Boston College coming up. Their first pitch is mere moments away in game 2 of their series against Boston College. It's a chance to check in from Doug Kingsmore Stadium last night following Clemson's victory over Boston College. Here's head coach Monty Lee.
Hit with runners in scoring position in the first 2 innings of the ball game. Jolly with a huge double to clear the bases for a big inning in the first. And then Chris Williams with a big 2-out single, 2 RBIs there in the second. And next thing you know, we're up, we score 5 runs there in the first 2. And then, Logan Davison had a nice safety into 6. And then Seth followed that with another base hit, single RBI to score 2. And then Seth hit the big 3-run homer there in the 8th. So we had 2 big innings today, which is a great offensive day. Again, I thought, our approaches at the plate were very good. Hennessy pitched outstanding again. And you look at the box and look at the line. He threw 6 innings, only gave up 1 hit, no earned runs. I thought Spencer Strider was about as good as I've seen him this year. As far as his fastball command was outstanding. Fastball velocity was up there too. I think he was 93 to 96 today. And then Bo Gobin, I thought, did a great job. You come into that situation and he filled up the strike zone and it was just ground ball after ground ball. And, a few of them, got through the infield, but that's what you're looking for right there. And so I thought Bo did a nice job. So, overall, it's a great day in all fronts. And we got game 1 here, and hopefully we can carry some momentum going into tomorrow.
Coach, you had those 4 straight losses, and then you go on the road to Louisville, a team that's had your number in the regular season the last couple of years. How important was it to take those two out of 3 games there and kind of get back on track?
Well, we needed to play well. I mean, there was no question about it. We had a bad weekend, a tough weekend against NC State where, we didn't play good baseball. I actually thought we played really well in that 3rd game at NC State, just lost. Things didn't go our way. We didn't play very well against Coastal. So we were just in a stretch where we just weren't playing real good baseball. I think part of it too was, offensively, we were probably trying to do too much to overcome, some of our defensive flaws and just not playing overall the way that we were accustomed to playing. So I think what you've seen, out of our guys, and it started in the Louisville series, we hit some balls hard. We pitched and defended really well, pitched out of some tough jams, which continues to build the confidence of the pitching staff. And then we had that offensive outbreak against Furman, and we carried that into today. So I just think, we got back to kind of doing what we want to do, which is, again, build our offense on plate discipline, being aggressive in the strike zone, but getting good pitches to hit, taking the borderline pitch, getting guys on base. And it's worked, and hopefully we can continue to do it.
What does it mean for you guys to get Seth's bat going again the last 2 games?
Well, we need Seth. If you just look at our offense, between Seth and Cromwell, those 2 guys, when they're swinging the bat well, Chris Williams has been very, very consistent for us. Logan consistently gets on base. When we needed Cromwell and Beer to get it going, Seth has been, locked in, obviously, here. And you could see it in the Louisville series. He hit a couple balls hard that got caught. But we needed Seth to get it going. Had a good day on Tuesday, carried it into another big day tonight or, in game 1 here. So it's good to see it.
That's Monty Lee, and Clemson already underway against Boston College here today. A 1-2-3 inning for Clemson's starting pitcher, Brooks Crawford. Again, Dan Metzdorf, the southpaw for Boston College, starting for the Eagles against the lineup of Davidson, Beer, and Cromwell to start out for the Tigers at Doug Kingsmore Stadium, number 8 team in the country, and Davidson's already started the game with a leadoff walk. South Carolina last night, Adam Hill went 5 hitless innings, a return to form for him after missing the Georgia series. He had a little bit of shoulder discomfort and inflammation that sidelined him against the Bulldogs. Didn't necessarily come back and go full bore through just 72 pitches, but again, kept Tennessee off the hit chart and kept them off the scoreboard through his 5 innings. South Carolina did the rest behind The great play of Jonah Bride, who had 3 hits and scored 3 runs. Also 3 RBI day from Chris Cullen. Head coach Mark Kingston last night, very encouraged by the opening game victory.
Yeah, it's great to have Adam Hill back there tonight. I think a team has a lot different mindset when they've got their big guy out there doing what Adam does for us. So I thought that set the tone for us, gave us a little bit of our edge back, and 5 innings, no hits. I think that speaks for itself.
What was the plan for Adam going into tonight, and when were you able to kind of breathe and relax after seeing him, get a few batters out? Yeah, obviously with him taking the week off, the plan was to not have him throw 100-plus pitches. We wanted to work him back in, I think, intelligently. 80 to 85 probably was a number we were shooting for. After 5 innings, 72 pitches, and we were up, I think, at that point 6-0. So we just felt like that was the right thing to do. Get our bullpen some work and get him out of there, a little bit sooner rather than a little bit later. I thought, he obviously didn't have the dominant stuff in terms of strikeouts, only 4 strikeouts with 5 innings. But he looked good enough that he would be able to be successful. So he's going to compete for you when he's out there. So the fact that he wasn't giving up hits and that he was getting not great contact, we felt like, okay, Adam's back to Adam tonight.
Got a lot of production, obviously, at the middle of your lineup. But how good was it to see guys like Chris Cullen and Riley Hogan step up and drive in those runs, especially early? Yeah, those are big hits they got there, no question about it. With the condition we are health-wise right now, we're going to need guys to step up that have played smaller roles throughout the season. So obviously Chris has been a starter for a great majority of the year, but Riley stepped up tonight, had the big hit for 2 RBIs. That's going to continue. Guys are getting opportunities maybe that weren't early in the season because of these injuries. So we have to keep trying to win. No matter who's out there, if you're wearing the South Carolina uniform, we expect you to help us win. So that'll continue to be our mindset.
Kind of following up on that, but both of those at bats were really good at bats, and they took the ball back up the middle in a key situation. Is that something you guys have been talking about, changing the approach a little bit with 2 strikes, in situations like that? No, I mean, that's our strikeout to walk ratio this year is really good. So we've had that approach from day one. Sometimes it works out better than others, but that's not some new magical formula we came up with. Hey, let's hit the ball through the middle with 2 strikes. That's our approach all the time. They just happen to do a really good job of that tonight. So both of those guys, I think Jonah had 3 hits tonight with 2 strikes. So by and large, we're a team that does a really good job with 2 strikes. Our strikeout numbers are some of the best in the conference. So that's not something that's anything new. It's just sometimes you get the big hit, it just gets magnified a little bit more.
It has been a while since this team has tasted victory in an SEC series. What would it mean if you were to win tomorrow or Saturday to win an SEC series to kind of get a little bit of that relief and the monkey off the back? I mean, we're a next game mentality. Obviously it's well documented. The last 10 series in the SEC haven't gone our way, but you can't think about that. You just come out tomorrow, you prepare in BP and infield, and you go out to win that ball game, period. As an athlete, as coaches, you can't get distracted with those kinds of things. You just have to focus on what you're doing at the field. How's that for coach speak? That is, I know, right? I mean, here's the thing. Of any sport out there, pro, baseball probably is the one where streaks probably go to your head most because of how many games you guys play. Well,
it's a stat-driven game more than others, in my opinion, because that's what you look for in baseball. Did he hit for average? Did he hit with runners on base? How many strikeouts did he get? The key point to South Carolina, which can gnaw at you, is the fact that even though they've lost these series, there were games in which they had in their pockets either gave them away or they lost by 1 run. So it's not like they're getting dominated. So you almost think that it's the mental approach to just have that little swagger to push them over the edge to win a baseball season.
Still no Stokes, Campbell, or Hopkins for South Carolina. Cody Morris starts tonight against Garrett Stallings. That is about to get underway over at Founders Park. Recruiting next on Sports Talk.
What?
The guys are always checking email. Send your comments or questions to talkback@sportstalksc.com. Now, more of Sports Talk from Columbia's Main Street.
Couple of score updates. Coastal Carolina leads 4-0, top of the opening inning for them as they get themselves going in Georgia against Georgia Southern. So big start for the number 20 Chanticleers. Still no score at Doug Kingsmore, despite the fact that they now have the bases loaded for Clemson. Robert Jolly at the plate with a chance to possibly get the first mark for the Tigers against the Eagles. Recruiting in a moment. I do want to at least ask you, Pro, before we get to that, your thoughts on tomorrow's games in San Antonio. Of course, it begins with the Final Four in the Alamo Dome, Loyola Chicago at Michigan, and then, of course, the Villanova-Kansas nightcap with the 2 number 1 seeds. Do you give Loyola Chicago more than a puncher's chance against the Wolverines' defense?
Yeah, because they've gotten this far. I think probably, though, the coaching staff has looked for a counterpunch to that backdoor play because John Beilein, one of the unsung coaches in college basketball, his teams are very, very solid, knowing his teams from West Virginia before moving on to Ann Arbor. And the key point is they're going to take that away. And I understand that Loyola probably knows that. So they're going to look for a counterpunch. I think, though, that their big thing is defense.
Yes.
And if they win this ball game tomorrow, Loyola would have done a tremendous job on shutting down Michigan's propensity to hit the big three as a dagger. And that's the key, playing that 3-point line against Michigan. They do that. And they can really kind of control inside and the tempo. I think they've got more than a puncher's chance to win this
among
game.
Ken Palm surveyed offenses, Loyola Chicago 58 on offense. Michigan's defense 4th best in the country at a 91-point adjusted point efficiency.
What Beilein does is he looks at your film and says, what do they like to do? Let's not let them do that.
Yeah, it's very simple.
Yeah.
He takes away your best strength. Meanwhile, Villanova, among the adjusted offense, top offense in the country, according to Ken Palm. And they take on a Kansas squad that, to be brutally honest, I mean, that game against Duke was Duke's for the taking. And Duke, because of their inexperience, basically urinated down their leg. And, of course, Kansas got here with experience with guys like Devontae Graham and, of course, the inside presence of Udoka Azubuike. Do they have what it takes to match up with Villanova?
They have what it takes, but I think the intangible here is, and this may sound trite, but it sounds like a fan talking, and I am a fan of college basketball. And I think
I know where you're going.
College basketball is mental. Villanova is a basketball school.
Yes.
That
so was
team,
Kansas.
That team, but that team takes the floor with a swagger that tells you, look, we're a city school. Basketball is king here. We play football, but nobody knows it. We're the guys here. Yeah.
So does Kansas.
Nobody talks about it.
Yeah.
But they just look like they have that swagger.
They do.
That can carry them over even when the game gets tough. In fact, they look like the team that the game is more fun to them when they have to bite their nails to win it.
They are looking like a more fun team out there. Kansas a little bit more business-like.
Yeah.
Jalen Brunson, of course, the sensational guard for Villanova, should be a very big key there. Dante DiVincenzo, who is basically a Ryan Arcidiacono clone from the championship team a pair of years ago that won it all in Houston. So, of course, a Lone Star State return for them. Of course, the last title that Kansas won happened to be in the city of San Antonio when Mario Chalmers hit the game-winning shot that sunk basically the hearts of many, including myself. To recruiting, this is a very big story that we've been following for you all week, and it was first reported by Gamecock Central that Bryce Thompson is not going to sign with USC. He had told the state newspaper yesterday that he plans to play Division I football. Well, he has talked to our Phil Kornblut, and Phil has told him that that's just simply not the plan for right now. According to his conversation earlier, which you can find more of at SportsTalkSC.com, Thompson, again, will not be signed by USC for the 2018 class, leaving one open scholarship. Thompson told Phil that he plans on going to Benedict for a year or two and then looking to try and find a good D2 college for himself. Also, Korn spoke with Dutch Fork head coach Tom Knott, saying that Bryce had some academic work to catch up on, was set up to do so at Dutch Fork, had the classes that can certainly do it, but then he had to take 2 virtuals, so it's on him. USC still has a spot available, again, as we said, the 2018 class. Right now, they have centered around Texas A&M grad transfer corner Tim Harvey. He's going to come in for a visit. We'll see if that plays itself out again. 1 scholarship remaining for the 2018 class for South Carolina. They already have 24 already committed to that class and signed. USC coach Will Muschamp, a defensive coordinator, could possibly get a 2019 commitment this weekend from Kalijah Cansey of Miami. He'll be in for the second time for the spring game and coming with his stepdad. He told us earlier that it's about a 70 to 80% chance of a commitment, but after I visit, I'll know where I'm really going. He says he's just excited to get up there. They are my favorite. Likely it will be South Carolina. Among those, of course, recruiting him, Louisville, as well as Georgia Tech and Kansas State, Rutgers, South Florida, and the 2 3-lettered schools in Florida that are not Florida State, FIU and FIU. He will sign early and graduate early, so he would be a January enrollee if he does commit and play for USC. From Shelby, North Carolina, Landon Zanders made visits to both USC and Clemson earlier in this week. Of course, that's the same hometown of our pal Bobby Buckets from Clemson. Wonder how much he's getting involved in that recruiting on the Clemson side. He said the visit to USC was good and also took a campus tour and saw the facilities. Also, USC and Clemson basically jockeying for this player. No USC offer yet. He does have a Clemson offer, but he's also paddling with Tennessee, Georgia Tech, among others. Fort Dorchester defensive lineman James Middleton, and of course he goes now to Jones County Junior College. Will Muschamp's been checking up on him. He plans to get out in May of 2019, visited USC in December, but he's still locked in on the Gamecocks as long as they want him. So that could be something that could be en route for May of 2019 and for the 2019 season. A big offer cut for USC target Chris Steele of Bellflower, California, defensive back. He made the cut from 44 down to 14. Since Korn is not here, I'm not going to read all 14 schools to you. Just know that USC is on it. Clemson is not. USC offered 2020 defensive end Kendrick Bentley-Jones of Kannapolis, North Carolina, also with Duke and Virginia offers, as well as Wake Forest. Dorman wide receiver Jacoby Pinckney will visit Oklahoma this weekend. Also had an offer that came from the Sooners, as well as Syracuse, Tennessee, and Ole Miss. USC has offered early to the Dorman wide receiver, but no further contact beyond that early offer. A couple of basketball notes. Of course, DJ Burns of York Prep, part of that very heavily loaded 2019 class inside the state, visited last week by USC assistant Perry Clark. Basically, he's told us that he's always checking in. Also has had contact from Tennessee, Virginia, as well as College of Charleston. He is also going to be with his AAU team this weekend in Augusta. So be sure to keep an eye on that. And something from my neck of the woods, the Matha Catholics, 6'5", 2020 prospect Earl Timberlake, offered by Clemson, according to the Washington Post. Other offers for him are Maryland, K-State, Georgetown, Penn State, and Providence. And that is recruiting for this Friday, March the 30th. You can keep up with it on our Twitter at ST Recruiting, the hashtag ST Recruiting, and of course online at SportsTalkSC.com. That was very, very well timed. We'll come back. We'll talk a little golf with our pal George Bryan III, some birdies and bogeys. Houston Open this weekend. Not only that, but of course, it'll be our last chance to talk to GB3 before Wesley Bryan takes his first shots at the Masters next week in Augusta. He, of course, also the defending Heritage champion. So a very big couple of weeks for Wesley. So we'll talk about that with his father, George. Also still to come, conversations with Kyle Krantz, USC's Nickelback coach, Clemson co-offensive coordinator Tony Elliott, and the South Carolina softball coach, Bev Smith. Remember, if you lose us over the air on Periscope, you can find us at Sports Talk SC on Twitter and also on our Google Hangout at SportsTalkSC.com. Did you have something?
No, you sounded good doing the recruiting. You want to make that a living?
No.
Oh, okay. I thought I just had.
Hey, if there's one thing I've learned in this business, it's good. I know how to fake it. We'll be back.